Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the John Mendola Show. And we got the expert in college football joining us right now, Phil Steele. And of course, I had to grab a copy quick off the press with Phil Steele's college football preview. Phil, so much work goes into this college football preview. It is the Bible, 350 plus pages. We welcome you into the show. Your summer seems like it's pretty busy, but going well.
Yeah, definitely. And, summertime's my easy time of year. Magazine season is 7 months. We start the Sunday after Thanksgiving all the way through the first week of June. And then, of course, football season, trying to keep track of 65 games each week. So right now, just kicking back, doing radio shows, podcasts, getting a few things ready for the season, maybe working 50 hours a week. It's like being on vacation.
So the energy from you is, it's almost like the bubble. I do a high school magazine here locally in northeastern Pennsylvania, so I get that feeling of a couple of months of buildup. But as you say, the air kind of lets out. Now it's like literally relax time. Talk about all that tedious work that you and your team put together to kind of get this together, because everybody's like, hey, the 24 season just ended, and we're already talking about 25.
Yeah, it starts the Sunday after Thanksgiving. I would start the first write-through process, and what I do is for the teams whose seasons are complete, we've got the final stats. I go ahead and read through every article that was written about that team for the course of the year, get a real good ebb and flow of each position and the team itself, and then I begin to write it. And the first or the write-up for each position is three-pronged. The first is, what kind of shape was this unit heading into last year? What happened last year? What's going to happen next year? Now, the first two parts there aren't going to change. Heading into last year and last year's final is not going to change. But with the transfer portal, that final write-up, what I expect from the position is going to change numerous times during the write-through process. The second write-through is when the spring rosters come out. We get all the transfer portal updated, all the freshmen coming in. I rewrite that ending part of it. And then the third part's after talking to the head coaches. And I tried to talk to all 136 of the head coaches, probably got through about 125 this year, 126. Spend about an hour with each one, going over every player on the roster, every position. And then I do my third right through. And it makes it a little hectic in the month of May, because we have to wait to do this, the coaches calls, until the transfer portal closed at the end of April. So it gets really hectic down the stretch, but put out the magazine and we capture. The magazine goes to press 5 weeks after the transfer portal closes. So we captured all the moves from the transfer portal.
We're talking with Phil Steele here. He is the college football expert. We appreciate him joining us. Phil, we got a lot of Penn State, Notre Dame fans here in northeastern Pennsylvania, some Pitt fans as well. But everybody expecting Penn State to be really good. But can they be the top dog here in 2025?
I think they can get there this year. In fact, for the first time in the 31 years of the magazine, I've picked Penn State number one overall. And here's what I like about them. First of all, they're a homegrown team. If you check out philsteele.com, I've got a blog up there about homegrown teams and how I expect them to have success this year. What I mean by homegrown team is players recruited as freshmen that are still on the team as seniors. And we saw that with both Ohio State and Michigan. While they had some transfer portal players, the majority of the team was homegrown. And the last 2 years, those two teams had a lot of players turn down the NFL. I think Ohio State had very few players drafted last year. This year, they've had 14. And when you look at Penn State, they only had 5 players drafted last year. A lot of guys that could have gone to the NFL opted to stay. Dennis Sutton and Zane Durant up front on the defensive line, a couple of high draft picks are back this year. They've got Drew Aller back at QB. They've got my number one rated running back core in the country with Nicholas Singleton, Katron Allen. Then don't forget about Quentin Martin and Corey Smith, a couple of VHT true freshmen last year that got their feet wet. The offensive line I rate number one in the country. If Penn State did have a weakness, it was probably at the wide receiver position. That's one unit they addressed in the portal, bringing in Kyron Hudson from USC, Trevor Pena from Syracuse, Devontae Ross from Troy. The defense is loaded this year with NFL caliber guys, and they bring in Jim Knowles. I think will do a good job as a defense coordinator. Was just a defense coordinator for the national champ Buckeyes. I like the fact that James Franklin's crew got to the playoff last year, got in some playoff wins. I think that's going to help them this year in the big games. And I do think they're the most talented team in the country. So I've got Penn State number one overall, and I think they get it done this year.
Yeah, we're hoping here for the fans here in northeastern Pennsylvania, that's for sure. The Penn State fans hoping it finally happens. The stadium redo and all that stuff, and it'll be interesting to see how the schedule goes. Now, as far as their schedule goes, that Oregon game on the 27th should be pretty big to start out early in the season for them.
Yeah, and Oregon is a team that's one of the main contenders in the Big Ten. And while they lost a lot from last year, Oregon lost 10 NFL draft picks, including Dylan Gabriel at QB. I think Dante Moore is going to step in. And while Dante Moore didn't impress me at UCLA starting as a true freshman, I think he's got a much better supporting cast here at Oregon. I like the fact that he learned the system last year and is now ready to take control. And he's got a really good supporting cast, like the offensive line. Defensively, they've got a lot of players back in the defensive front seven. And I actually only have Oregon an underdog in one game this year, and that's at Penn State. So I think they are a legitimate contender. I just think that's going to be tough for them to win in Happy Valley.
We're going to get to it, the next thing we'll talk about. But how do you get, okay, so you're already you only have them as an underdog in one team. How much of this stuff, when you analyze this stuff, is computer? And then how much, you hear you talk about how many games you have on a weekend, then you're watching them over on the next day. Like, you put a lot of work into this. It's 7 days a week for you.
Yeah, absolutely. During football season, it's 100+ hours a week. And that's all I work on is college football. I don't even watch the NFL. I do not follow any other sport, basketball, baseball, any of those. I just work on college football year round. And, a lot of it is computer generated. My computer's been very accurate. It's got all the information that, I plug into it, and then it plays out seasons. But as far as who I have favored and not favored, after I put the magazine to the press, I go through every game for the upcoming season, check out the matchups, check out the series history, the situation, everything factored into it. And then I decide who I'm going to have as a favorite and who is a dog. And it really helps me in this time of year, pick a team and say which games they'd be favored. And like with Oregon, for example, I do have the at Iowa game, a toss-up game, but one underdog game, and that's at Penn State.
We move along to Pitt this year, the Panthers. What kind of season do you think Pitt will have?
Pitt last year would have had a much better season if they kept their quarterback healthy. Eli Holstein and company were 7-0 at one point last year, rolling along, and then Holstein got banged up. And after his injury, you go back, he missed the majority of the last 6 games. He had 0 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions in that stretch. Keeping him healthy is going to be a key. I love the fact that Desmond Reed is back at running back. They've got an offensive line that looks pretty solid. I think Lyndon Cooper and Ryan Baer are both NFL caliber offensive linemen. Defensively, last year they lost so much off the defensive front, and I was concerned. I talked to Coach Narduzzi. I'm like, what are you going to do for a pass rush? He's like, Phil, we have a better pass rush this year than we had last year. I was skeptical, but they went from 31 to 41 sacks last year. And now this year they got a more veteran defensive front seven. Kyle Lewis, one of the best linebackers in the country, and a veteran secondary. So I think Pitt's a very dangerous team. I'd consider them, if they win some key games, toss-up game early at West Virginia at the Backyard Brawl, toss-up game early when they host Louisville at home, toss-up game when they go to Syracuse. But win those games. Really, the only games I've got them an underdog, and never more than a touchdown underdog, are against Florida State on the road, Georgia Tech on the road, and Notre Dame at home. I think Pitt tops last year's 7-win total and could be a sneaky player in the ACC, provided they keep Holstein healthy. They actually go from number 109 in my experience chart all the way up to number 17 this year.
That's a huge jump. And we get to that next team. We're talking with Phil Steele here on College Football Preview. You can pick up a copy of his magazine at the Barnes & Nobles. That's where I got mine in Wilkes-Barre. Of course, there's other locations, but and you can get on to Phil Steele online as well. But Notre Dame, tons of fans, a lot of Irish heritage here in our area, and everybody loved what Notre Dame was able to do last year. If you're a Penn State fan, it kind of stung you there. But for the Notre Dame fans, the expectations are high again.
And they should be. And, you go back to last year in the national championship game, they were basically down their top defensive lineman, top offensive lineman, and Jeremiah Love was 100% healthy, or they probably would have given Ohio State an even better game in the final. This is a loaded team. Probably the biggest question mark is quarterback. C.J. Carr is a redshirt frosh, though, that I think can step in there if he wins a job over Kenny Minchie, which I think he will. He's got my number 2 running back core in the country with Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. Number 3 offensive line in the country. Number 4 rated defensive line. Number 3 linebackers. Number 1 DBs. This is a loaded team once again. And while they've got some tough games on the schedule, Miami of Florida to open up the year, Texas A&M week 2, USC October the 18th, Boise State. I'd actually have them favored in all 12 games this year. And I like the fact they got the playoff experience last year. I think if they stay healthy during their playoff run, they've got a shot at potentially winning it all this year. Watch out for the Irish.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think there's a lot of people feel the same way as you. We go to James Madison, Bobby Chesney, a kind of a Eastern Pennsylvania guy. He coached locally here at a D3 school and wound up now at James Madison. We got a local guy in Stone Manello, who's a guy from Dallas who's coaching on that staff. So some people pulling for James Madison. You think it'll be a favorable year?
Yes, I do. And last year was an unusual year for them, losing 4 games like they did. James Madison, not used to that. The last time they lost 4 games was 2018, but you had to expect a little bit of that because the majority of that great James Madison team from the previous year was playing for Indiana last year and taking Indiana to the playoff. So it was a big year of change for James Madison. And you look at their losses. I mean, the 2-point loss to ULM, a close loss to Marshall, a game that they blew a big lead in. So they could easily have had a better record. Now there's question marks at quarterback. Alonzo Barnett, their QB from last year, should be able to play this year, but they've brought in Matthew Sluka, who had great success at Holy Cross under Chesney 2 years ago. And I think they're solid there. They've got Petaway at running back. I think he's going to be one of the better running backs, or maybe the best running back in the Sun Belt, a veteran offensive line now. And now it's year 2 for Coach Chesney, so they don't have as much turnover as they did last year. And they get the biggest games of the year: Louisiana at home, Georgia Southern at home, App State at home. You look at their road slate in the Sun Belt: Georgia State, Marshall, Coastal Carolina, all winnable. Probably the toughest road game at Texas State. And Texas State has had a major turnover this year, really relying on the transfer portal. So I think James Madison's the best team in the Sun Belt this year and should get back to their usual form of losing just 1 or 2 games during the course of the season.
Next team to talk about here before we kind of talk about some general schools is we're talking with Phil Steele here on the John Mendola Show. And we're going to go to West Point and Army, and they're going to open up with Tarleton State. Nobody's ever even heard of Tarleton State on the schedule. They'll play home in week 1 against them, but they've done a great job there, and they just seem like they're rolling in the right way and could be another 10-plus win season.
Yeah, Tarleton State was actually 10-4 last year and made the playoff in the FCS. And by the way, for your viewers out there, if you want to know anything about any FCS school, I have a FCS digital magazine with 2 full pages on every FCS team. So you can become an instant expert on Tarleton State. Just go online, get the digital magazine, and there's a lot of FBS versus FCS games. But, with Army this year, I guess my biggest question mark is quarterback, because Bryson Daly was the straw that stirred the drink last year. He was a running back at the quarterback position. He was a leader. He basically willed that team to the title in the American Conference last year, and now they lose Bryson Daly. But overall, they've got talent on the defensive side of the ball. In fact, 5 starters back there, 4 starters back on offense. A big question is going to be who steps in at quarterback, and can they be as dynamic as Daly was last year. When you look at the schedule, they do have to play Tulane on the road. Tulane's the preseason favorite to win the conference. They have to play UTSA on the road. UTSA is a team that is dominant at home. They have to play Air Force on the road. Of course, the battle against Navy, play Kansas State on the road. I think it's going to be tough to match last year's 12-2 record. It's going to be tough to contend for the American Conference like they did last year. But Army's going to have a solid team under Jeff Monken, as always, and could be the surprise player. I mean, no one expected them coming into the season last year to win the American Conference. And there's something to be said, as I mentioned, for homegrown talent. And Army, Navy, Air Force are all teams that are loaded in homegrown talent. They don't even bring in transfers because they can't. So I think Army's probably going to be better than you would expect, but I don't think they're going to match last year's 12-2 record.
Talking with Phil Steele here on the John Mendola Show. Of course, you can pick up a copy right now of the college football preview. You can get it at Barnes and Nobles, and you can get it. Check it out on Phil Steele's website as well. Phil, Georgia, Clemson, teams like that, some of those top teams, Texas, Ohio State should be pretty good again. Is there a team in there that you think might surprise some people that people aren't talking about this year of the normal among the top teams?
Among the top teams, I don't think Clemson's getting as much publicity as they should. I think they're going to have one of the best offenses in the country, if not the best offense. 2 years ago, Cade Klubnik had a banged-up receiving core and only had 19 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He had lost like his top 3 receivers by early in the season. Then last year, he got those receivers back. They added to it, and all of a sudden, he had 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's got my number 2 set of receivers to throw to, number 2 offensive line. Defensively last year, they gave up 374 yards per game. That's outrageous for Clemson. Well, they bring in Tom Allen from Penn State, and he inherits a bunch of NFL caliber guys. They're going to have a top-notch defense. I have Clemson favored in all 12 games. But if you're looking for a real surprise this year, let's look at my number 1 surprise team in the country, and that is Oklahoma. And with Oklahoma last year, they were just 6-7, and they play a tough schedule once again this year. But the Sooners' defense was outstanding. They held opponents to 87 yards per game, below their average, number 6 in the country, and they've got 8 starters back on defense again this year. They have one of the best defenses in the country. Their problem last year was offense. They had 0 returning starters on the offensive line, and like Clemson, which I brought up, they lost their top 5 receivers due to injury at one point during the year. Well, like Clemson, they get those injured players back, like Deion Burks, an NFL caliber wide receiver. Plus, they add to it with some transfers coming in. They go from a weakness to a strength at receiver. They go from a weakness to a strength on offensive line, as they're now a veteran group, and Bill Bedenbaugh, one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. They add in a Jaden Ott at running back, who was the best running back in the Pac-12 2 years ago, and they already had Javonte Barnes, their top rusher, coming back. Then you add in John Matera, quarterback from Washington State, put up big numbers last year. His offensive coordinator comes with him, and Ben Arbuckle, and all of a sudden Oklahoma's got an outstanding offense. Then you look at the schedule. Last year they only had 3 SEC home games. Well, this year they only have 3 true SEC road games. The Texas game's at a neutral site. They get Michigan at home. I'm saying watch out for Oklahoma. This is a team that very well could make the playoff, despite the fact they were 6-7 last year.
Big Ten wise, we have people here in Northeast PA. We've got some ties with Rutgers. We've got some ties with Nebraska. Could either of those teams that are a little bit up on the rankings make some noise and shake some things up there in the Big Ten?
As far as Rutgers goes, I think Rutgers is a better team than they were last year, a stronger team, but unfortunately, they also play a tougher schedule. They basically take on every big boy in the Big Ten this year, so it's going to be tough to match that last year's 7-win total. However, Nebraska could be that team to sneak into a potential playoff spot. You look at Dominic Raiola last year. He was a true freshman, or Dylan Raiola, excuse me. He was a true freshman last year, and he had a nice ratio, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions his first 5 games, but then started to look like a freshman. He got banged up the second half of the year, 4 touchdowns, 9 interceptions the last 8 games. I think he's going to have a vastly improved season at QB. They've got a veteran offensive line. Defensively, they do have some question marks in the defensive front 7. They lose their outstanding defense tackle combination of Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmaker, but I think overall they're solid there. And we know Matt Rule in his 3rd year generally achieves well. He's had 2 10-win seasons, one at Temple, one at Baylor. And then look at the schedule this year. It's laid out pretty nice. They open up with Cincinnati, home to Akron, Houston Christian, Michigan at home. I think they win that. Michigan State at home, at Maryland, at Minnesota, home to Northwestern, and then USC they get at home. I think USC is a contender in the Big Ten, but once again, they get them at home, at UCLA, winnable. The one game I've got them an underdog this year, a true underdog, is at Penn State. Watch out for Nebraska. They could be a double-digit win team. They are one of my surprise teams this year.
Phil Steele, you can check him out at philsteele.com. You get the digital information. It's just $19.99. You could check him out online, check him out on X. He is the expert in college football. Phil, we appreciate your time today and filling us in on what you think about some of the teams here that would affect our viewers here in our area. And it looks like it's going to be we're gearing up here for a great football season.
Yeah, absolutely, John. And you mentioned a magazine, just real quick for your listeners, just so they save some gas money. It's 360 pages, like they're getting 136 media guides rolled into one, but it's only available at Barnes and Noble and Books a Million. So don't be driving around looking for it. Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, or you could go online to philsteele.com. Philsteele.com. I'm going to charge you a shipping charge, but we also give you the digital magazine for free, which is updated through September. And then I mentioned 2 full pages on every FCS team in the digital FCS magazine. How about 4 full pages on every NFL team in our FCS, or excuse me, in my digital NFL magazine? That's all available at philsteele.com. But John, I got to tell you, it was a lot of fun talking football with you today. We covered a bunch of teams, didn't we?
We sure did. And I can tell you, I was just at Barnes & Noble a day ago. Plenty of copies of Phil Steele's college football preview. I got my copy back in June when it first came out. Excited about it, kind of leafing through it the last several weeks. And Phil, we expect a great year and follow you every week and watch what you do. We hope our viewers will join in as well and follow along and grab a copy of your magazine.
Awesome. Appreciate you having me on, John. It was great talking football with you today.
My pleasure. Have a great weekend, Phil.
Thanks. You too, John.
Okay. Phil Steele here on the John Mendola Show. Enjoy the weekend.